Is it that maybe we've not understood light, water, and magnetism to the degree that we need to? My advice to you is I think that's true. And you probably now know why I have a big disdain for a lot of modern research, because it's all manufactured and it's not tied to observations. Just so you know, every nutrition study ever done on this planet has been done under blue light. So, you still believe everything you believe about food. Now you see why I had the perspective I had 7 years ago. I don't believe a damn thing in the food literature. But you know who I do believe? I believe Western A. Price. You know who else I believe? I believe Albert Schweitzer. You know why? They observed humans in their natural environment. That was the key to their observations, and to this day, this foundation still doesn't really appreciate what that brilliant dentist really found. So maybe it's going to take another dentist to wake you up. Here's the blue light guidelines. You can see right around 435 to 465. So when you leave here, if you believe anything what I told you, you go to the eye doctor and get glasses to block that at night. Every morning you get up and you make like the Sphinx. That's my practical take-homes from the whole talk. That's all you need to do. See, the hippo and the lion doesn't need to learn how to eat, neither do you. And the only reason you believe you need to learn how to eat is because you have this thing in your head that allows you to break the laws of nature. That is the key problem. Start there and innovate your way back, and I think you'll surprise yourself. You have this. It's well known. All the things that are tied to blue light, they're out there. You don't need me to tell you. This is what happens when you have too much blue light. Your pupil gets big and you die. Okay? And you usually die first of diseases that cause the respiratory proteins to shrink out. That's Doug Wallace 101. Why? Electron chain transport slows. What happens when we give a human cyanide? Same thing, except they die right away. Well, all that's changed here is the time scale. Here's the problem, folks. I want you to read it and weep. I know Dave's been on my case. Can I live in Vermont really good? Dave, you can, because you're doing good. But if you got AMD, dementia, and this and that, you've got to move to a higher quantum yield environment and get that AM light to save your ass through your eye and your skin. And you need to get naked, as much more naked as you can get. So, how does this all work? Doug Wallace, he's at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He's the world expert, mitochondriac, as far as I'm concerned. Maddie actually went down and met him. But what happens? The solar EMF comes in, releases calcium, goes through nitric oxide, and then you make these free radicals. This is the entire pathway of how all EMF works. The problem is we're optimized to solar EMF, not non-native EMF. When that happens, it changes the electron spins of these free radicals, and they do things differently than they normally would do in a cell, and that's why we get sick from the use of cell phones and electromagnetic devices, which is what I told Mag to have this last year, why you would never catch me using a pulsed electromagnetic anything around my body. Now, Doug Wallace's lab, I just want you to pay attention right here. The position, the geometry of what's present in a mitochondria is 100% tied to energy generation. So what did I say to you earlier? The respiratory proteins have to come closer together. When that happens, these IMJs spike up, and guess what happens? You make a shit ton of energy. You know what happens when you make a lot of energy in a mitochondria? The nuclear genome gets turned off. In other words, it never gets turned on. You can't get cancer. So am I going as far to say that cancer is an epigenetic disease of light? Yep, that's what I'm saying. Ruben showed you this, so I don't have to show it to you. This is Michael Crawford's paper, huge. You got to focus on the eye clock, not the camera. My brother from another mother. That's why I really wanted him to come here to talk about this, so I decided to morph my talk so that you would get a little bit of Alexander and a little bit of Jack. Because in my opinion, he's leading the way, and I'm following behind, putting everything together. And it's incredibly important for you guys to understand it. And I've been cleared to show you this picture. So I had a lot of ladies come up to me last year and say, look, your talk kind of blew me away, and I was really interested in it. But how's it going to work for me? I'm postmenopausal, I'm getting fat, my body's changing. So I happen to sleep with a skeptic. Her name is Sandry Kruse. That was my wife, same time you saw me. I want you to know this thing, pink and sunglasses, okay? For 7 years, my wife didn't listen to me. I changed my son, I changed me, I changed other members in our family. She didn't believe me until one day when I went and had the locksmith come over, lock her out of the house with my daughter, and said, until you get the message, I'm done. Now let me tell you why I did it. This is the important part. I said, Sandy, if you want to kill yourself, I'm cool with it. But you know what I'm not cool with? My daughter has your mitochondrial DNA. And she, at the time, was 12 years old. I said, if you don't fix this, she's going to have a big problem. You want to know why me and Ruben? Why we're friends. He's got the same issue. It took me doing this to my wife for her to get the message. I wasn't trying to force her to do something. I was trying to tell her it was the key to fixing my daughter. So, thing I'm most proud of, I got my wife to take her damn clothes off. I got my wife to take her sunglasses off. And I'm happy to tell you that is my wife at 58 years old, 2 weeks ago, with her same friend. That is my wife 1 week ago at a horse show. Notice, she is in better shape than she was in high school. So when a postmenopausal, Western A price, granola-eating woman comes up to me and tells me that it's not possible, I'm telling you, you're not getting naked enough and you're not getting out in the sun enough. And just so you guys know, I moved my entire family 5 years ago from a northern latitude to the 28th latitude. Why? Because it was important for my family. Why? Because I understood how light works. And I know nobody in this room really understands it that well. But my goal is to make sure that you all do. Even if you heard something that's 5 or 10%, say, hey, that's interesting, I've done my job. That's what I want you to do. I want you to see what is possible. Like last night in Unbound, the part of the story you didn't hear, Sarah's sitting there and I'm going to bring it up. Sarah has a disease called electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Most people in the States think it's bullshit. And I told her when I first met her in London during the biohack event when me and Ruben went, that if she came to Mexico at the 20th latitude and went into the cenotes and spent time in the jungle, I thought in 3 or 4 weeks that would go away. And you know what I told her the main problem was? The UK's power grid oscillates at 50 hertz. You know what Wallace has found in his research? Every mitochondria that burns fat. Fat burning is not a function of food. It's a function of the oscillation that's made. Oscillates at 100 hertz. 50 hertz is the second harmonic of 100. I said, Sarah, my belief is that if you come to the right place, we can fix this. Sarah showed up 3 days in the jungle. Her symptoms went away. Correct, Sarah, or not? 3 frickin' days. She's had this for 12 years in the UK. That is what a mitochondriac gets. Would I have ever come up with something like that 12 years ago? No, I was an asshole. I was Julian Battle. I would never have questioned these things back then. But now, not a day goes by that I don't learn something from somebody. And Sarah proved something to me. I thought it would take 3 or 4 weeks. The fact that it happened in 3 days, that's really good news for all of you non-believer skeptics here, because you know what that means? 4 to 7 days when you live in Vermont, going down to Playa del Carmen, gives you 6 weeks of benefit. So if you make 3 or 4 trips in the wintertime, guess what? You actually may have a solution, but you have to expose yourself. You have to get past all the society and cultural things that we do. And it's our biggest thing. You heard what I said in the movie. Do the stuff that scares the shit out of you. This scared me. You heard Ruben say a little while ago that he didn't want to talk to people about doing shamanism. I mean, Josh will tell you, we've talked. As an MD, to tell the world what I'm telling you guys, do you know how counterintuitive this is to the medical profession? But guess what? It's really hard to argue with E equals MC squared. It's really hard to argue with the 1922 Nobel Prize. It's called the photoelectric effect. And you know, my favorite part is when I talked to the ophthalmologist a couple months ago, one of them raised the question, well, this is all well and good, but we need randomized controlled clinical trials. I said, son, you're not understanding. The laws of nature are not subject to man's beliefs. They're not subject to man's experiments. It's a pretty powerful statement. And you may think it's, I should say, obnoxious. I don't think it is, based on what I showed you. Why? Because now there's researchers out there showing you that it really does begin in the eye and in the skin. That's how leptin and all this is linked. And the cool thing about this, my prescription doesn't cost you a goddamn thing. And what did Einstein say? In the end, the answer will always be pretty simple. So what's my takeaway? Make like the Sphinx. Ground to the ground, take as much clothes off you can. For the ladies in the audience, there's a company in the UK, I'm putting this on Sarah. They're called Kaniki. They make bathing suits that allow UV penetration so you can be naked without naked. Okay? And I can tell you, coming from the South, it's my biggest problem. I think up here in Vermont, you guys are a little bit more hippie-ish and weird, so it probably would work, but you guys don't have great quantum yield here. So the reason I mention it to you is whatever you can do to help yourself. An infrared A light can work many different ways. We came up with the Quantlet, but you can use sauna. You can use the geothermal units like that you see in Iceland. That's the reason why the Finnish and the Scandinavians always use heated pools. Why? Because they're getting part of the sunlight they don't get through heating. Remember, heat is infrared light, and we don't realize it. Okay, I'm done.